Philosophy. In Western civilization, it started about 2,500 years ago here on the shores of the northern Mediterranean and especially Greece, when a few questioning thinkers put their minds to, well, to what? What is philosophy? People sometimes tell you that they have a philosophy of life, a philosophy of sport, a philosophy of gardening even. But when it comes to it, most would be hard put to say what philosophy actually is. In this video, we'll try to give you an idea of just that. We'll also talk a little about what people get out of studying philosophy. Now, it's hard to define philosophy. Dictionary definitions aren't much use for a start. The nature of philosophy is itself, in fact, a philosophical question. It's much easier to explain what philosophy is by giving examples of the sorts of problems that philosophers try to answer. So that's what we'll do here. Let's start with a problem that's probably familiar to you. Is there a God? Many believe that there is. Many believe that there isn't. So, who's right? And which God are we talking about anyway? People believe in many different gods. They can't all be right. So, which God, if any, exists? Does the fact that there's so much apparently gratuitous and unwanted suffering in the world disprove the existence of any good God, as many have thought? Some people think that you can't prove or disprove the existence of God, but that you should believe anyway, as a matter of faith. But suppose you believe, for example, without any proof, that there are UFOs, unidentified flying objects. Isn't that simply gullibility? So what's the difference, if any, between faith and gullibility? Well, this problem is a problem in the area of philosophy called metaphysics. Let's turn to a problem in ethics. Abortion is the termination of a human fetus. Some claim that women have a right, a moral right, to an abortion if they choose to have one, whereas others claim that they have the right to stop women from having an abortion by making it illegal. Now, who's right about this? And what's all this talk of rights anyway? It's easy enough to see what a legal right is. Legal rights are simply those things that you can do protected by law and the courts. But what's a moral right? Where does it come from? Who guarantees it? Is a moral right, as some have claimed, simply whatever the most powerful group of people in society decides? Let's move on to another problem. If one asks an anti-abortionist what's wrong with abortion, they'll probably say that it involves killing a person. But what is a person? What distinguishes people from other things like chairs and trees? Well, an obvious answer is that what distinguishes people is that they have minds. But what is it to have a mind? You might say that to have a mind is to be able to act intelligently. In that case, though, computers have minds because they can play chess, they can run investment portfolios, even fight wars. Perhaps that's not real intelligence, though. So what is? Maybe then another suggestion is that to be a person is to have a body of a certain kind, like yours or mine. But must people have human-like bodies? Couldn't there be people, for example, in another galaxy that were like us in all respects? Intelligence, emotions, everything. Except that they were physically quite different, made of silicon or plasma. Well, let's move from science fiction to science fact. We live in a world of space and time, and intuitively, space and time are very different kinds of things. For a start, time seems to flow. It goes from past to future. Space doesn't flow at all. More, you can move around in space as you will. If you choose, you can go to New York. If you choose, you can go to Paris. But you can't move around in time in the same way. You can't choose to go back to 1600 or forward to the year 3000. But modern science tells us there's no absolute difference between space and time. For one observer, two events, say the explosion of two stars, will be at different places, but at the same time. For another observer, these same events may be at different times, but at the same place. Now, how do you make sense of all this? Einstein's theory of relativity also tells us that for someone travelling faster than light, time would go backwards. Now, what would it be like for time to go backwards? You might think that the answer to this is obvious. It'll be like this. But if you think about it, when you see things running backwards like that, it's everything except time that's running backwards. Let's look at another kind of philosophical problem.